Hey everyone, this is Roger. Twitch again wanted to ruin my month of reviews by putting out 14 games this month. That's a lot of games. We'll get into it starting now. So, SNK Game Company put out 7 games for Twitch. And that's what added a bulk of the games this time. And what was interesting about this one is they're free until end of the year. So if you want to kind of debate about it or not sure if you really want to download it, even though all the games are small, I don't think any of them's 100 megabytes in size. They gave you this, and this is a lot of that. And the best way I can group these is by the two genres it's there. So first we got fighting games. We had 5 fighting games: King of Fighters 2000, 2002, Samurai Showdown 2, Art of Fighting 2, and Fatal Fury Special. And these games came out from 1993 to 2002. Metacritic gave them about 60 to 73% on these games, and they're on good old games. They're about $3 to $6. All these are fighting games. And it was weird. When I first played, I played King of Fighters 2000 was the first game I played. And I was like, why is it so fast? Everything was moving crazy. I was like, this game could not be this fast. There was no way back in like the Neo Geo days people were playing this game because they would be ridiculous. Come to find out that the game is set to 60 frames per second. But if you play on a monitor that's like mine set to 144 hertz, it tries to match that. So your sound is actually normal speed, but the game is trying to put out double speed for me because it was trying to match 144 with the 60 frames, and it was just a mess. My secondary monitor is only 60. It's hooked up to HDMI. So I just moved the game over there. Everything was fine, and it was weird. But besides that, all these fighting games were unique for its time. They did a lot more grappling style. I remember the King of Fighters characters a little bit more, but I don't remember the other games. Again, I'm not a big fighting game fan. So controller support for these were odd. I couldn't tell if it was registering my controller. You had to look faintly at the menu at the beginning to tell you were moving. And then I still never figured out how to put in coins because these were still set up as arcade. So I kept hitting buttons on the Xbox controller until something happened. But other than that, the controller did play fine once I got past that. I was having fun. It was kind of cool to see these games evolve. Like I said, you had a good, like, almost 10-year range of this company with fighting games, and you saw how they did changes. Samurai Showdown was pretty cool. I liked how the sword effects worked. You could cut your environment, everything like that. But overall, I would say not a download for me for these 5 games. The pros here is if you're big into fighting games or even like SNK, you're going to download this anyway, so there's no point explaining that. And if you just like fighting games in general, you may want to see some older games, which they didn't play bad. I was enjoying myself a little bit, just not a fan of fighting games. The con here is these are relatively cheap if you buy them now, but obviously they're older. And since then, the genre has expanded, and you could probably get better fighting games from the time that are more remarkable, like Marvel vs. Capcom, obviously, is a big fighting game that I would suggest if you wanted to play old ones, and I don't even deal with fighting games. But that's the con there. I think you could find better ones if you just want older fighting games. Before I continue to this next genre, just note these reviews are probably going to be harsher this time. They are more personal, but generally, if you like the genre, you're probably fine with them. Just some reason, they just didn't click with me a lot this month. So, that's just a spoiler, heads up. The next 2 games that SNK put out were what I call space shooters, the 2D side-scrolling shooting games where you are in a ship and you're usually in these weird planets. So, you had Blazing Star and Pulsar. So this came out in 95 with Pulsar, and Blazing Star came out in 98. I couldn't find Metacritic rating for Pulsar, but Blazing Star got 84, and they're $6 on good old games. This is my genre. I love this genre. Not good at it, but I enjoy these games. So Pulsar came out first, and I felt like this was them trying to expand like the Neo Geo graphics. Like when your ship blew up, it had this weird blow up animation that they spent a lot of time with. Your ship's this weird 3D thing, but the game overall was slow, and I didn't enjoy that as much as Blazing Star. Blazing Star, you got these random moves that you got to pick up, and you were able to shoot crazy amount of bullets, and it was exciting. It was still on the slower side, slower pace, but I enjoyed Blazing Star a lot. But overall, I had fun. And then this is where I learned a fun hack from the problems I had with the fighting games. Say you're really good at these games and you want an extra mode that they don't offer. I slid the game back into my 144 hertz monitor. Now you got super turbo mode, and some reason I actually did semi well. So here's a screen of me playing it. And yes, this is at real time. Don't ask me how I survived. I managed to do a decent amount until the end. But overall, this was fun. I would recommend downloading Blazing Star. Polestar you can live without. And again, this is if you like these space shooters. I know the Super Nintendo had a bunch of them. That was when I started playing them. This is your genre here. The con is, it is a 2D side-scroller shooting game, and I know a lot of people don't find those exciting. So that would be probably the issue there. So there, we got through half of the games. So let's go through the actual half that will be only available this month. We got Observer, which came out in 2019. Metacritic score is 78, and it's $30 currently on Steam. And it's about a 7-hour length in gameplay. And this is a detective game. You're set in the like Blade Runner environment, so that cyberpunk feel. And what's cool, your main character is voiced by the guy from Blade Runner. So that was awesome. And basically, this is where you walk around and solve crimes. You go to crime scenes. And since you're like this hybrid human robot, you got different scanners. So you got this bio scanner where you can search blood. You got electronic scanner to read chips and stuff like that and interact with them. It was an interesting story. It starts off really confusing and you get involved. Again, it's that cyberpunk kind of storyline. It didn't like shock me, but it held me in. Like your son hacks in, and then you go to his apartment he hacked from, and there's a murder scene, and you're trying to figure out if it was him or not. That's the first part. I won't ruin the rest of the story. But you're slowed down by the crime scenes. I felt like you stay in rooms a lot longer than what you need to, but that's part of the genre. It did become a walking simulator, though. There wasn't really much action going on, except during, like, these dream scenes where you could actually die, but they didn't grab you as much either. But overall, the story did hold me enough to play this game, and I kind of enjoyed the look. It had a lot of filters, so it had that cyberpunk blurriness, like crazy stuff going on. And I thought that was cool. And I had a tough decision to make here, if I should say download or not. So I'm going to lean download. I would say this is probably about 50-50. But I'll give it a download just because it was a cool take on detective game. You got some cool scans to do and that, but you're going to not like this game because if you kind of don't like this genre, because you're going to feel like you're in a walking simulator. And I know that's going to put people off on this game. Next up is Forsaken Remastered. I never played the original. I remember it for the N64, and when I saw the cover art, it looked familiar. I remember it from magazines. But that came out in 98, and this remake was 2018. It's for $20 and got a Metacritic score 75 for the N64 back in the day. It's about 10 hours to beat, and it's a first-person shooter. That's the old style. This is that Doom, Duke Nukem old PC versions. And basically the story here is like the Earth was like kind of exploded partly in shambles, and now there's a lot of like looters trying to steal stuff. And this isn't your normal shooter. You're in a ship. So you got this 360 view in the whole level fighting other ships. So you had the old school feel, but with the ship. So you can move around freely. You got some cool upgrades. You got a lot of missiles. At one point, I was shooting a whole bunch of stuff. I didn't even know what was happening half the time. So that was awesome with the cool upgrades. But while playing this, I remembered why I hated these games. The first problem was this is the standard N64 problem, and probably with PCs, I wasn't a PC gamer then. There was no direction. You kind of had a level and you had to figure out, and then it was like, oh, here's this random little duck, and oh, I'm continuing the level. This game had a lot of those and a lot of backtracking, and it was very confusing. And just some of the controls are clunky moving the ship. And overall, I realized this just wasn't my game that I played. So I would say this is a not download. People that will download this is people that probably played the original and remember it and want to play it again. The con here is the old school shooter, and it does remind you of them old problems we used to have. All right, next up we got Project Warlock, which came out in 2018 also. Metacritic score 78, it's $12, and it's about 7 hours. And this is an old school first-person shooter. It actually came out 2 years ago, and that was the whole point of this game. They wanted to recreate that old school feel. So it was a new game done in that style. So that was kind of cool. Like the style, I didn't have much of a story here to talk about. You're fighting demons, you just start fighting. The weapons look cool though. You had this knife and space, like magic gun. I shouldn't say space gun. And those are cool animations for that. The bad guys looked awesome. The bats, the spiders, the weird demon woman. So the game looked really well. And it was nice to have free aim. So a lot of the old Duke Nukem and Doom games, you couldn't aim. You just kind of shot at the direction you were looking at and the bullets would go there. This one allowed you to move around and actually shoot where you want it. So that was the addition. The graphics had this weird, like, old school, new school mix. So, like, these rocks were 2D, but would spin at you. But it actually looked pretty well. I will note that this game is very hard. I was playing on normal, and I died a lot on the second level. Again, reminds me of them old school games. This one, I didn't know what to pick for. I was leaning not to download. But I'll say, you know what? Download this. This was at least taking an old game and making it new, so it's worth the chance to try it. Again, the pros here is they updated on the genre and made it feel old and new at the same time, which I found unique. The con here is if you're like me, you may not like it because of the Doom feel, but I did give it a chance and was kind of enjoying it. I don't see myself replaying this game, but I would say it's a download. I think they really did their job well. Next up is The Flame and the Flood. This came out in 2016, got a 75 on Metacritic, and is about $15, and it will be about a good 10 hours of gameplay. And this is them survival style games where you start off and you have to eat, drink, sleep, and try to survive as long as you can. And it's kind of cool. This one, you actually have a dog companion that helps you find stuff a little bit. He doesn't help you attack, though, like with this wild boar. He just kind of barks. So he wasn't too helpful, but it was extra, like, backpack, so you could do that. And basically, here you're just collecting supplies, got to camp, and continue to survive. This game had this weird, like, I don't know how to describe this animation. It almost reminded me slightly of, like, stop motion style that you kind of see. But it looked awesome. I enjoyed it. This was different because it wasn't like you were always on land either. You had to move island from island. So there's this raft mechanic where you have to go down and find ports. And if you hit something, you lose about 10% of health on your raft. So the raft is very important to survival, which I kind of like. It was a nice addition. And I did like the hunger meters and all. Felt easier. So you had two modes, Traveler and Survivalist. And Traveler, I think, is their normal. And that mode didn't make it feel like I felt like I could go a little while without eating all the time. That's usually my complaint with survival games. I feel like every 5 minutes I have to worry about food. This one, I didn't have to do that much. And overall, I did like this. I didn't get far enough into this game to get, like, weapons to defend myself, so I was running from the wild boars a lot. But this was actually fun. I like the mechanics of the raft. So I would say download this. The pros here, it's a different take on the survival. You have this more water-based option there. The con here is it's a survival game, and they're a little hard to get into if you're not into that genre. Next up, we have Steel Rats, which came out in 2018. Got a 68 on Metacritic, $20, and about 6 hours of gameplay. And this is a platformer, but you're on a motorcycle. So you're in this group called Steel Rats, and you start out with the nerd guy, and then you find more and more of your companions, and you learn the game through that way. And it's weird. So your motorcycle stays on a track, and there's multiple tracks, so it's a 2.5D platformer. So usually you have two tracks you can go back and forth on traveling. And it's unique, but the weird part is you go back and forth a lot. Where like on a normal platformer, this isn't a problem, but here you have a special button to do U-turns. So you have to kind of turn your bike. Doesn't sound that bad, but the issue I had was I was playing with keyboard for a while. The game was very difficult there. When I finally switched to controller, because I had a problem getting the controller to work the first time. So this is one of them games you do have to have the controller connected before it'll sync up. But when I got the controller, it played a lot better, but still it was clunky-ish feeling. They made ramps where you had to do these dashes sometimes, and during the tutorial it was easy to tell, but sometimes it was hard to tell playing the game. So I felt like it was clunky. I liked the idea they were going for, but I have to say, do not download this. I didn't feel like, I felt the new mechanic was getting in my way more than anything, than making the game a new experience. So the pro here is if you want a different type of platformer game where you're just on motorcycles, this is a game you probably want to look at. And the con here is you're going to fight with this new style of platformer because you're on a bike, and there's things that kind of go away with the platforming genre here, which I didn't like. Next up is Max, the Curse of Brotherhood. And this came out in 2014, and it has a Metacritic score of 73. Costs $15 and about 6 hours of gameplay. I do want to note that this game does go away June 26th, so don't wait till the end of the month for this. This is a platformer, but it's more of a kid's game, so that's just heads up there. First off, the graphics and videos are amazing here. I was hooked in immediately with the look of this game and the videos. It reminded me of like I was watching a DreamWorks movie. And that was awesome. And the story got right into it. It wasn't much introduction. You kind of had a goofy Max. He wished his brother to go away, and you're in this new world. And there you were. And what was amazing was like when your brother's getting carried by the monster, you could see it in the background. And then the next part, the monster was chasing you, and it just all looked good. The game played really smooth, too, for a platformer. I was able to grab ledges without too much problem. There was a gravity thing to help you at times. If you were just about there, you could see the game kind of correct for you. The only complaint I did have was Max, like, starting out had a weird animation, like his feet didn't match his speed. But that was the only complaint. But if I'm being that nitpicky, that means that was the only problem there was. There was a story, but since it's a kid's game, I do relate it as a kid's movie. The story isn't like super compelling, but it's enough that you're kind of invested. It'll make you play the game. And then you meet this character that will put her soul into your marker that you carried with you, because this was an impromptu visit to this world. And you get to control the environment. So you got to lift up platforms from the ground and then take them away, which added to the puzzle aspect. The puzzles weren't hard, but they were fun. I enjoyed them. You would have like a rock come down, and then you have to lift the land up to make the rock go down a path, hurry up and destroy it, and then build the bottom part of it so it can knock the bridge over. So it's kind of intriguing puzzles, and I enjoyed it. Again, the look of the game is what sold me, so this is going to be a download. The pros here, it's a fun platformer that you can play with your kids, or just play as an adult. I find it very entertaining as playing it for this video. The con here, it is a kid's game, so don't expect a whole lot. It wasn't necessarily hard. It was just easy going through. The last game that snuck up on me, Dream Daddy, which came out in 2017. Metacritic score 72. $15 and 5 hours of gameplay. So if you don't know the history of this game was created by the Game Grumps, a famous YouTube channel that is very funny. Go check them out. I enjoy their content. And this game was, I don't know if I would say a parody of the genre, but there was like a new take. Basically, you're a dad trying to bang other dads, dating simulator. And that's the goal here. You're a dad trying to find another guy to hook up with. What was interesting about this game, though, was the father-daughter relationship was cool. Like, I found myself more focused on that, and I think that was the goal of this game, was to point that direction, and that story was really good. I enjoyed that part. The jokes here did entertain me from time to time. It was hit and miss. There's a lot of dad puns, so, I mean, it's a Dream Dad dating simulator. There's a lot of dads. You're gonna have dad puns. My favorite was this little sports scene that's been playing. And now you also added mini games, which was a nice break. Some of them were just basically ripoffs. Like this one that made me laugh was the Pokemon one. This is when you're trying to prove your daughter's better than the other dad's daughter. And it entertained me for a little bit, so that was cool. But like any visual novel game, I found myself just clicking through the text near the end until we got to the father-daughter stuff. Some reason that storyline was actually good. And I kind of wish the dating part was like taking out, because I felt like the whole dating game and trying to impress your date was more of just tedious for me to get to the story for the father-daughter conversation. So overall, I felt that this was still a visual novel at the core, and the actually kind of side story was more important. I'm wearing a Doki Doki shirt here just to prove a point of like, that was the only visual novel I liked, but that was because of the weirdness, and I wouldn't even say it's a dating one at all, but that was the only one I ever played, and it was short, and I liked every other ones I didn't like, so I would say this is a not. The pros here is if you're looking for a fun visual novel, this game had a lot of it. The character creation was funny. Here's my character here that has a cat suit, so I had to pick that. And it's a comedy game. It's from the Game Grumps. If you like that comedy, you're going to like this game. You're not going to like it because this is purely a visual novel that's probably made with one of them RPG makers, I'm assuming. And you're just going to be back to that standard gameplay. They try to add mini games, but that was enough to help hold. And you're just going to click through the story and try to rush through it, I think, until you meet the father-daughter relationship stuff. Wow, that is a long video. There was a lot of games. I really hope Twitch slows it down, because this is a lot to do. So overall, there was a mix of genres this time. I enjoyed it. The SNK thing was kind of cool. If you're a big fan of them, you're going to be happy this month. You have a huge, wide-range selection of games to play if you're interested in it. So anyways, let me know in the comments of which ones you liked, or why did I rate one bad and you liked good. Tell me the reasons. I'll be interested to hear that. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed. Peace.